Thank you, and welcome back to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name is Eric, and I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 81st episode this week, where we'll be recapping a Patriots win versus the Chicago Bears and previewing their upcoming game versus the Los Angeles Rams. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter/X as well as Instagram at Pat's 300 Level Pod for up-to-minute updates and commentary on news of the day. So, Kevin, I know this is a game that we both predicted the Patriots to lose. But they pulled out a win, pretty dominant win, 19-3. It wasn't the prettiest game, but for their standards, they actually played a complete game. Pretty much the first this whole season, minus maybe the first game of the year versus Cincinnati. Not too many. I know we've both been harping on the coaches pretty much every game this season, minus the first one. And there wasn't really too much that stuck out from a negative perspective. They seemed to be coached appropriately. There were some pre-snap penalties here and there, some missed assignments from the players, but overall, there wasn't any glaring I negatives from this game from a coaching perspective and even from a player perspective. What was your overall thoughts?
I think overall thoughts was I think like kind of what Bill had said earlier on McAfee this week. I think this game was really more about the Bears and competencies and failures than really the Patriots. I give them credit for the game plan that they had. I think to not layman's terms, but to really anyone that had any sort of idea of what Caleb Williams looked like, you
Yep.
knew going into this game the way to stop him is basically to do what they did against Zach Wilson. We said that last week. They said if they
Yeah.
were to treat him like that and they had a game plan that was kind of how they treated Zach Wilson, they would be able to stop him that way. We just didn't think that because of this basic things that they haven't done this year.
Yeah.
And when they haven't done that, why can I expect them to do another basic thing? And they did it this
Yep.
time. So I'm happy that that happened. Um, and I think that's really kind of why they were able to succeed and do well. And again, they didn't really do well offensively. They scored 19 points, and
Yeah.
they didn't score over 20. And you'd like to them to be scoring over that to having a good efficient offense. But I think yeah, again, this is more really about the Bears' incompetencies and how kind of poorly they played and how poorly really Williams is playing right now and how he's
Yep.
seeing the field and he's getting sped up even more and he's trying to do a lot of the things that he did in college and got away with it and he can't get away with it in the NFL. He can't go playing
Yeah.
hero ball because people are going to stop him. And I think that's the big thing coming out of this game is um it's nice that they were to have a good game plan defensively for one game. What's it going to look like the next game when it's a little bit harder to kind of defend when you have a better offensive mind you're going up against than the Bears, who ended up finding their offensive coordinator after this game.
Yep. Yep. No, exactly. 100%. And this is something that we talked about last week too, where when we were previewing this game, the Bears' offensive line is horrendous. It was even before the season, and they were down some offensive linemen due to injuries too. They have a lot of weapons on offense, but if you could get pressure on the quarterback, pretty much essentially what you did to Zach Wilson, get pressure, collapse the pocket, force him to stay inside and not scramble for runs, you'd have a chance. I just didn't expect them to be able to do that because I mean, outside of Keon White, the first 2 weeks, they haven't really been able to get much pressure. They had 16
And they
sacks.
haven't played disciplined either,
Yeah.
is the other thing.
They had 16 sacks in 9 games going into this, so less than 2 sacks a game, and they ended up with nine. They did exactly what you needed to do to win, but since they haven't shown that, I wasn't expecting them to. And then the Bears do have a lot of talent on offense, but as Bill has said multiple times on McAfee on his own podcast, that it's great that they have so much talent, but if you don't have time to throw the ball, there's not much you can really do, especially with a young rookie quarterback that has to learn how to play in the NFL. Like you said, when he was at Oklahoma, when he was at USC, because of his pure talent, he was able to get away with some of these things versus superior or inferior defensive talent. But at the NFL, he's not able to. He's not the most talented quarterback. He's not the most talented player on the field. He's very talented, but he's not the most talented player. And there's so many faster guys, so many more talented guys that you're going up against, let alone defensive coaches that are scheming for you. So, like you said, I think I don't know how much to take out of it. Yes, they've won 2 out of 3. They should have won 3 in a row. But a lot as much as I want to say that this is them going in the positive direction. I, I'm just worried that it's a lot of their opponents. We'll see how they do next week. The Rams are a little banged up. They lost a game they should have won against Miami. That's a game that going into it they needed to win and they lost. But McVay is a good coach. He's a very good offensive mind, and they have a lot of talent on offense. So we'll see how they do game planning against a good offensive mind with good offensive talent. But you have to like what you saw on Sunday from a defensive perspective.
Yep. No, I agree. Kind of going to Drake May. He was 15 for 25, 60% completion percentage. Again, every week you're seeing this, and eventually I like him to kind of clean this up. And again, he's a rookie and he really didn't play much in college, so you kind of have to expect it. But
He
he's
played two
always,
years.
yeah, but compared to some of the other quarterbacks, um, he has at least one boneheaded interception every single game. And it
I think he
continued
only has two.
again.
Yeah.
What?
Not, I want to say interception because he only has, I think, three on the year, but boneheaded throws, and
Hmm.
then this time ended up being an interception.
Yeah. And he needs to cut that down. I'd say this is probably his worst game, out of all of them.
Yeah.
He
And we
was
said that
helped.
the previous week going into last week too.
Yeah, he that's the thing. And then we've talked about him regressing a little bit where he's getting some more of the habits. This is one of the things we were worried about him playing behind a porous offensive line, is
We
that
were
is
worried about
he
this even before he
oh
was
yeah,
drafted
before even yeah, is that
for this year.
he's making a lot of the decisions that he would make in college. He's getting kind of happy feet a little bit. And the biggest thing is that he's holding on to the ball longer and longer each game and causing more pressure on him, where he should either be getting it out, throwing it out, making a quicker decision, or getting rid of the ball, where he's trying to hold on to it a little bit longer. And that's just causing more pressure on himself. And then the other thing with him is the guy just needs to learn how to slide. He's not Josh Allen. He's not
Yeah.
250,
Well, Josh Allen
260
also needs
pounds.
to learn how to
He needs to
slide.
learn how to slide too, but at least
Yeah.
he's been able to be fine so far because he's like built like a linebacker. And eventually that's
Yeah.
going to catch up with him too, because look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton
Yeah.
was even bigger, and it ended up,
Yeah, but and Allen's a much better pocket passer than Cam. But
yeah, no, but he ended
yeah.
up screwing up his arm because of
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
So he couldn't
Yeah.
throw the ball because he ended up hurting it. So eventually there's going to be a way, if Allen gets hit the wrong way, then that could screw everything up.
Yeah.
But May needs to slide. He's built more like, I would say he looks more
Justin
like
Herbert.
Justin Herbert, but he
Like a
tries to
shorter
play
Justin
like,
Herbert. Yeah.
yeah, and he tries to play like Josh Allen, and he's not Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And he's gonna get killed if he keeps
Hmm.
having these unnecessary like head first slides into people. He just needs to slide and sacrifice maybe 5 yards
Yeah.
and not get everything. Because
Especially this season too. Like
yeah, especially this season where
it's one
it's
thing. See, yeah, it's one thing if it's a game's on the line, it's
mhm,
deciding the playoffs, or if you're in the playoffs. But this season, where there's a 0.9% chance or 0.1% chance they'll win the Super Bowl, but realistically, they're
yeah,
not going to make the playoffs.
yeah, yeah. They realistically right now would have to. They're what, 3-7. They would
Yeah,
have to only lose two more games the rest of the season to probably have
and
a
be
chance.
lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's not going to happen.
yeah,
Although the schedule is fairly light
yeah,
except for the Bills
yeah.
going
Cardinals are
forward.
playing well, and Chargers are playing well, but
Hmm. But anyway, yeah, I think anything else in May that you'd like to say, or
yeah, I'd say other than the boneheaded throw that ended up in the interception, which was a Mac Jones throw interception that he had numerous times last year and also this week. But there were also times where he's like jumping to throw it, like, or he's not setting his feet. It's reverting back to those bad habits that we talked about all off season and even the beginning of the season that we were worried about, where in college he was able to get away with it. Mac Jones tried doing it last year, couldn't get away with it. I know Drake May is more talented, has a bigger arm, more athletic, but that's something that as defenses and defensive coordinators see that, they're going to be able to game plan for that, and you're not going to be able to get away with that. Even Josh Allen, he led the league in turnovers, I think two of the last 3 years or something like that. I know this year he's doing well, but even Josh Allen, I know a lot of us are trying to hope that he turns into that, but Allen still has those interceptions, and he's not able to get away with that. And he's still one of the top quarterbacks in the league, let alone a rookie who hasn't learned how to really read a defense or play in the NFL yet, even though he's had a good season so far.
Yep. And then the other thing too with May is that now he leads the league, I believe I was reading, in the turnover worthy plays,
Yeah,
and he hasn't even started all the whole season. So
yeah.
that's pretty kind
And
of out
he's
there.
gone up against some, outside of Houston, he's gone up against some very terrible teams.
Hmm.
Jacksonville, Titans, the Jets after they fired their coach.
Hmm.
Even even the Bears, they're not. I know Eberflus is a defensive coach, but they haven't been playing great fundamentals this year either. So we'll
Hmm.
see what it looks like as they start playing those better teams.
Yeah.
I know that they still don't have a tough schedule going forward, but as teams start to see them, and even just like the Bills, for instance, or a tough Chargers team, Cardinals maybe, those might be teams that start to figure them out.
Yep. And then one thing I didn't put on here, but we talk about coaching a lot, like Alex Van Pelt. He's still like he's not creative. He threw in a couple more things this week
That
where he
quadruple
had
reverse was interesting, but
yeah.
I,
Like he threw the reverse
yeah,
in. He had a few more plays that were clearly designed for Pop Douglas.
yeah,
Um, and I think that was the biggest things I noticed were kind of the design plays for Douglas where they're getting him a little bit more involved there. But the thing is, you see that once, and then for a few more games, he's not going to do it. Is what
yeah.
we've seen this season,
And he's
where
also
he'll like,
calling plays in the wrong spot where
mhm.
you get 7 yards rushing on first down, and you just throw it 2 times when you don't have guys open, or you create plays where the route running doesn't have good yard separation. Again, maybe that's the receivers running the wrong route, but
Yeah.
um,
And that's like another thing I wanted to mention where there's a tweet out there by I think Lazar saying how he thinks that AVP should be back next year if
yeah,
the development is the going still going well with May and AVP, and I can get that to a point, but one of the points that I brought up with is the guy's like 50 years old. If he's not creative right now, creativity isn't something that you learn. It's really something that you like have. Like I am
yeah,
not a very creative person. I can't go like thinking of these really outside the box things and like uh I have a little bit, but I can't envision things like that far ahead. I'm more technical, and that could be the way the AVP is, and just doesn't have that creativity, and that's not a bad thing.
yeah,
But that means he shouldn't be the one calling plays and figuring out the design of the offense. I'd be fine with them just still keeping him because they're not paying the guy anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they're doing.
yeah.
And bring someone else in that has more creativity that could call plays and have him step aside and keep developing May. And still, hell, still call him the offense coordinator. Who really gives a shit? The Patriots have done it for years where they've had the titles don't really mean anything.
But
So
that's something that Gerard Mayo talked about all off season is that titles mean something.
I know, but it also seems there was some. I don't know. I need to look this up to actually see where it came from, but
I
it
think
was
it
on
came from no. I
NBC's.
wouldn't even
I
bring it
don't
up.
think it came from anywhere because it was Ted Johnson talking about it, and we all know how we feel about him. But there were some claims that the Crafts are talking around to see what they should do for May. I don't know really know if well, I can kind of believe it happening. I just
Yeah,
don't believe the report.
I haven't seen any
I haven't
report. I
seen
tried
any other
looking.
report
Yeah,
other than just that musing on NBC Boston. Unless it's just a an educated guess that knowing the crafts and knowing what you would do.
yeah.
Um, but I don't know, it'd be interesting to see. Uh, Running back, they did better on the ground this game,
Yeah, they
ish.
did, but it's still for a team that was supposed to be a run first team. And again, maybe it's just because defenses are game planning to stop the run and
Hmm.
hope that May throw some interceptions when they have to pass. But Stevenson again,
And their run blocking just sucks,
yeah,
so
they're
that's like
and
another
their whole
thing.
block, yeah, the whole blocking sucks. But Stevenson 20 carries, 74 yards, only 3.7 yards per carry.
Hmm.
He hasn't been the same player he was the first week of the season. And
I
yeah,
didn't, but when anything else on Stevenson or
Uh, I mean,
I
not
was gonna
really.
just say, this popped in my head. I don't know why Hasty's on the team. Like, I don't think he does anything well. Where he's
Mm,
supposed to be this quick gadget guy, and he's not. He's not
yeah,
fast. He's not quick. He's not elusive. They ended up taking him off the kickoff team because he's not fast.
yeah,
I would at least at this point I'd rather just have Kevin Harris, where he's a
yeah. Me
bulldog
too.
runner. He could run straight downhill
I
and
like
be
Kevin
something
Harris.
more of what closer to Stevenson, where Gibson's a little bit more of that kind of shifty guy. And I get that they want to run that West Coast like stretch plays and zone block schemes, but they're not doing it as much with Stevenson because he's not that type of runner. He's more of
Yeah,
that straight downhill gap runner. He's not a West Coast runner.
yeah,
And if they need to adjust and keep the run plays for Stevenson because you extended him for what 3 years,
yeah,
you might as well have someone else that can run like Stevenson. And that's not Hasty, and that's not Gibson.
yeah,
That's Harris. I'd rather have him or someone like him. You could get
yeah.
someone off the practice squad somewhere else, but
I
Hasty's
do
not
like
it.
Gibson though. I mean, he
I
is a
like
good
Gibson.
player.
He's a
He's
different change
been
of
yeah,
pace kind of
and
back.
he's been productive when he gets the ball. I don't know why Hasty has outsnapped him, out carried him the past couple weeks because, like you said, he hasn't really done much. I think Gibson should be getting the ball, but that's a good point that you're bringing up. That if you want to run the West Coast outside zone running attack, why would you extend Stevenson unless you thought he could do it, and now you see that he can't. Now you have to switch your
Hmm.
offense again. But that's something that it kind of just shows if that is what they're really trying to do, that they're not really executing their plan appropriately. They're, to use a Bill Belichick quote of Woody Johnson, ready, fire, aim,
Hmm.
where it's not to the same level as that, but it's like, okay, this guy can do it. We'll extend him, and then he can't do it. We draft Caden Wallace to be a left tackle. Oh, he can't do it. We sign Okafor to be a left tackle. Oh, he can't do it. We re-sign Onwenu to be a right tackle. Oh, let's actually move him to guard. Oh, let's move him
Hmm.
back to tackle. Let's move him back to guard. And it's just, this is a very small thing, but it kind of shows pretty much everything they've done since they've taken over this offseason. Front office coaching, which I'm not sure where to put the blame as of now. Maybe it's the whole collaborative approach, but it's been a lot through the past 8, 9 months of this.
Yep. No, exactly. Anything else on running? To look at to the wide receivers.
Nope. Yeah. Nope. I was going to say one thing about the running tackle. We'll get to it when we do the previewing of the Rams.
All right. So Hooper, I think had a decent game.
Yeah.
Three catches, 64 yards. He had some of those big explosive plays. Booty,
Drake May had
uh,
a good throw to him too.
yes, had a really good throw to the right side.
Yeah. And then even like we were talking about a lot of negatives about Drake May, where he is reverting to his bad habits, but he's still not. It's not like Mac Jones, where Mac Jones was missing guys or things like that.
Well,
May
that's
is
the thing.
still,
He has the skill and the talent to overcome a lot of those
yeah,
things. Where
and he's
that
not
throw
letting it
that
get in his
happened,
head.
yeah, that throw that happened in Germany.
Yeah,
Even though if the same mechanics happened for Drake May, he would have gotten a touchdown pass on that play just because he's a better athlete. He's got a better arm. He's got better velocity. He's got more touch. Just a better physical specimen than Mac Jones is. He's bigger. He's stronger.
Drake May's interception this week was not to that level, but was
No, it
a
was just
little
a stupid
reminiscent.
throw, but
Yeah,
it wasn't like I can't physically make that throw.
Mac Jones could physically make that throw. It was in his head.
Well,
It was like a 15-yard throw,
but he was falling backwards and trying to throw it up there.
but he could still make that throw.
All right. So then Douglas, like I mentioned, 4 catches, 50 yards. I think they did a little bit better of a job at kind of
They need
scheming
to
him
do a
in.
better job. I know
They
they're trying to
do.
get it more, but he's your best receiver. He's able to get open, but he shouldn't be getting only 4 catches or only 50 yards a game. He should be
No,
getting,
he's their poor man's Tyreek Hill, and they
yeah,
need to be getting more out there. They need to be doing end arounds. They need to be doing a lot more like slants, and they need to do like crossers with him, bubble
slants and in cuts.
screens. That's the game.
Yeah.
Um, and they just need to use him more. He's their best, most effective playmaker on offense. He's the only playmaker on offense besides Drake May and Stevenson. He's the only playmaker they have.
Yeah.
And you saw what they did 2 years ago with Marcus Jones on offense. can't they just look at that and see like how we got this guy involved? Or look
Yeah.
at last year, how did they get Douglas involved? Like it's
Yeah.
not that complicated. It's just they're so married to the scheme and not to try and fit. They're trying to fit the scheme to the players to the scheme and not the scheme to the players.
Yeah.
Um, and then Booty, he's got his little dependable 4 catches,
Yeah.
47 yards. He's turning into a pretty good, reliable, decent wide receiver for them. I think that's
Yeah.
where we were hoping for. He was an all pro an all star recruit coming
All.
out. What are they
Yeah, I
called?
think it was a 5-star recruit.
5-star recruit in LSU. He had those issues at the end of his LSU career where we can remember the ankle injury and then something else. So, and then the gambling. But he seems to kind of turn around. The biggest thing though with the wide receivers, which I don't get, is saying that you are not having Bourne play because you want to get more reps to the young guys, but then you play Osborne, uh,
Yeah.
a ton of snaps where we know you have an Osborne. He's nothing special. Bourne at least is I get he runs the wrong route sometimes, but are you benching him because of that? Are you benching him because they were out the night before him and Thornton? It wasn't that late. It was like what 8 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
But what was that the actual reason for it? Because if this was the reason you want to have the younger people, that doesn't make any sense because Osborne isn't going to be doing anything for them
And
in the
Osborne's
future.
is
It's
his
only here
contract is
this
up at the
year.
end of the year. Bourne's under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah. So that just doesn't make any sense unless they're just trying to make it seem like they made the right signing, which it seems a lot of their moves lately have been to try and justify what they've done in the offseason
Yeah.
rather than putting the best player on the field or making the best player on the field
It could
succeed.
also be that to cover or not to throw Bourne under the bus for partying or not partying, but just being out the night before. Maybe that's the
Hmm.
reason why, and they're just saying giving that fake
Yeah.
excuse.
If that's the reason, I'm fine with it. It's just
Yeah.
if it wasn't, then it just doesn't make any sense. Or
Yeah.
it could just be the fact that he's just running the wrong routes and having false
Yeah. Could
starts and
be.
not being lined up, and he has no idea what he's doing ever. Like
Hmm.
that's the biggest thing we've always had with him.
Yeah.
But what we had said, I think even going back to last year, where their players aren't good enough, where you have to take the couple bad kind of routes or mindless penalties that he has
Yeah.
because his physical skills outweigh those because you don't get that from anyone else.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe they realize right now they just because they're not going to win anyway, they want to at least have everyone running the right things and doing the right things and setting a good
Yeah.
cult. If that's the case, I'm fine with it.
Yep. Agreed.
Um, it just getting the young players and having Osborne play doesn't make sense.
Yep. Agreed.
Defense. You want to take this one?
Yeah, so I think that this they did pretty much everything we said you needed to do last episode. We just didn't think they could do it. But they got a lot of pressure. They collapsed the pocket, 9 sacks. They pretty much used the Zach Wilson game plan. I was worried that they were going to that Cole Kmet was going to have a big game just because Patriots defense hasn't done great against covering tight ends this season, but they held him to without a target the first half, and I think he only had two catches the whole game. DJ Moore had pretty much nothing when Gonzalez was going up against him. Allen had a couple here and there, but not much. DeAndre Swift wasn't really able to get it going in the running game or in the receiving game. So they played a really good game overall. They used Brandon Schooler as a spy to, even if they did collapse the pocket, Caleb Williams wasn't able to run outside of it and gain any yards because they were spying him. So overall, really good game plan. Good job by Covington and the defensive staff to really start to turn things around. Hopefully, this is something that they can move forward into next week. I know both of us do like Covington a lot. I think we both think it's a little unfair to him, where maybe not unfair, but he is a little inexperienced, and you would like to have him with a defensive minded coach that he could lean on. I know Mayo is a coach, but only really being a linebacker coach, only playing linebacker. He doesn't have that experienced defensive coordinator, ex defensive coordinator, ex head coach, defensive coach to lean on when game planning, when doing play calling. But he did have a really good game this week.
Yeah. I think, like you said, the game plan was really well. They executed what they needed to do, which we said that how you have to go about this game plan. And they didn't run past the quarterback.
Yeah, which is
And
something they've done all year, but they
yeah,
didn't really this time.
I think
And
the two big
the few times they did, they had Schooler spying where it didn't really matter anyway.
hmm and the kind of two interesting things that they did. Jonathan Jones played a lot of safety in this game.
Hmm.
And that helped kind of the kind of coverage that they had. They played, I think, the most man coverage they had the entire season in this game. That's something that we've clamored for really from the beginning, where the beginning of the year they're trying a lot of zone coverage, a lot of stunts and different things off zone. And you just gotta get back to basics where you have the best man corners, I think, possibly in the league. You've got some really, at least really dependable ones. Use
Yeah.
that, and that way it helps your run defense because then you could get more guys up there in the box and stop the run that way, and have your guys just go man to man there, and that's what they did, and then Marcus Jones, I think, has been really playing really well in
Yeah,
coverage
it's been.
lately. And then Brendan Schooler, I know you disagree because you can't really say you don't really know who made the game plan, but watching this at first, I was like, oh, that's a really kind of like Belichick style thing to do, with having Schooler be the spy there because we saw back in 2017, 2018 when going into the Chiefs, Bill ended up getting putting one of the special teamers on Tyreek Hill to run with him. I'm trying to look up the name because it's evading me.
Oh, I
Is
know.
Keon Crossan or
Nah,
someone like that? I forgot who it was, but he ended up getting like a gunner to basically run with Tyreek Hill the entire game because he won the fastest guy, him and then also Jonathan Jones to go up against Tyreek Hill because he wanted the fastest guys to go with him. He didn't really care about like what the actual coverage was. He just says we need a track guy to go with this guy, and that's what happened. And while you're looking it up, so then they did that. They've done other similar things where you see what they've done, like Vrabel have being a tight end, or the linebacker before being the fullback, and all sorts of things like that. We've seen that creativity and ingenuity being done, and then Brennan Schooler being the kind of spy safety linebacker. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a Belichick thing to do. And well, who is the safeties coach? And is the kind of positional coach for Brennan Schooler, and kind of the spy where he was more in the safety box part. A lot of the times people say a spy linebacker, but he was lined up more in the safety position. That's where the Patriots defense typically uses the spy there. Last year, and I don't know why his name is also blanking on me, but the short guy, that he was the free safety slash cornerback, played.
Adrian Phillips.
No, the other guy, undrafted free agent.
Oh, Josh Bledsoe,
Nope.
because he was
Um,
sixth rounder.
no, he was the undrafted free agent. They had him for a while. We everyone kind of hate. He tackled really well. He actually played his best year, I think, last year. And I don't know why I'm completely forgetting his name. Um, it shows that he's probably not really that effective. I think he's on the Texans now. I'm probably naming everything I've owned. I just can't think of his
Miles
name.
Bryant.
Miles Bryant. So
Yeah,
Miles
Miles
Bryant,
Bryant had a great year last year.
yeah, Miles Bryant would be that spy safety, and that's kind of the role that Brendan Schooler was there. And who's the position coach for the safeties? That's Brian Belichick. And did that come from Brian Belichick? We don't know. I'm going to say it was him because
I don't think
we
so.
can't say it wasn't him. So I'm going with that. It was
You're sounding like a massive hater doing that. And the thing is, you could say that, but
I'm not
both
being a
May
hater. I'm not saying it wasn't May, or May's too stupid. Not Mayo's too stupid to think of that, or Covington. I just think that that's a little ingenuity thing that would happen on the Belichick route. Why
and
not be Brian Belichick?
Both Covington and Mayo coached the last 5 years under Belichick and have seen that, even with Miles Bryant last year. So I think it's way too much of a stretch to think that Brian Belichick, the safety coach, came out and said, use Brandon Schooler. I think that the team, the staff as a whole probably knew that. Maybe you're right. Maybe it was Brian, but I think it's way too big of a stretch to say it was a Belichick that did that.
There's no way of knowing.
I
So
know.
I can't be proven wrong. Um, anything else in the defense before we go three up, three down?
Nope. Just
All
hope
right.
that they continue going forward. They have another tough match next week, so we'll get into that in a minute.
All right, three up. I've got defensive line edge, so like Jennings, Wise, White, they all played really well. Hard to really single one out for that, or else there just be those three guys. Farms was really good
Yep.
on the defensive interior. And then Covington for having the game plan. I'll give it to him because I don't really know. Really, he was the one calling the plays. He's the one running the defense, and I still to this day don't really know what Mayo's doing day to day because every single shot they go to him on the sideline, he's standing there like
by himself,
by
not
himself,
talking,
chewing gum,
maybe
looking
muttering
as
one word, but
looking like a deer in the headlights. And I don't. He could be coaching up, but honestly, they're not doing him justice. If
yeah,
every single shot is him just like
yeah.
um, and then honorable mention Sly, just because he made a bunch of field goals for him. Not that he did anything special, but he put the points on the board for him. So
No, that's fair. I went with Covington number one. I know that we've been hard on Covington where defense hasn't looked the same as last year, but this week it did. Again, maybe it was more of the Bears, their ineptitude in the coaching, their offensive coordinator, their poor defensive line, but he did everything he needed to for the Patriots to have success. So he had a really great game. My second is Demontre Jacobs, their offensive tackle. He had a really good game. He was actually rated by Pro Football Focus as the third best offensive tackle in the NFL this week. Not just right tackle, offensive tackle. Really good game. And then I put the front seven as third up just because of all the pressure that they were able to get. And then Farms, I guess, as an honorable mention too. I guess he's sort of in the front seven, but they just had a really great game this week. So
yep. All right, three down. KJ Osborne, Aquale, and Barringer. Osborne, again, he was in there for I think 60% of the snaps and did nothing. And I think it's a waste. Just they need to just cut ties with him because
yeah.
he's not gonna be here next year. He's not really doing anything for the team. And I think he's just kind of really a wasted roster spot.
And it kind of
Um,
shows from him being inactive the past previous weeks to him starting and getting 60% of the snaps. It kind of seems like, oh, I'm complaining in the media, or my agent is complaining in the media. That's all I have to do, and then I'll get playing time. It's to me, it sends the wrong message. Again, he's not
Agreed.
really doing a lot negatively, but still that sentiment, and then his snaps going in the complete opposite direction after that just doesn't sit right with me.
Nope, agreed. Aquale, he just every time he was on the field, he was getting run over basically. And then Bryce Barringer, I think this is the second week in a row for me for him. Or he's at least the second time I've had him on. But he's not really having a great year this year because I think he might have he's closing in,
He
I think, on the
wasn't in your
record.
bottom three last week. He
Okay.
was not.
Um, he's had, I think, I don't know if he's broken the record yet, but the amount of weeks with at least a 50-yard punt. But he's not punting like directionally anymore lately. He's doing the exact wrong thing you're supposed to doing where he's punting it straight down the field, out kicking the coverage and allowing the punt team to return a pretty decent yardage, or he's just booming it into the end zone. He's got really no touch anymore lately.
Yeah.
And he's basically just kicking it as hard as he can, as far as he can, and not really caring where it goes. Where he had that 75-yard punt, everyone was all hot and bothered and saying how great it was. It ended up netting 55 yards because he kicked it right in the end zone. He had
Yeah.
straight down the middle. And it just happens way too much with him where he's too
So he has
talented to be doing
27
this.
straight games with a 50-yard punt. So
Mhm.
every single game of his career, he's had a 50-yard punt.
Yeah. And it seems right now is he just trying to extend that streak and not actually punt for accuracy anymore. Um, yeah,
Because
that's
in the
him.
beginning of the game too, he had that. I guess it's a good segue because I have him as my number one down. Because in the beginning of the game, in the first quarter, he had another punt where line drive right down the middle, and then the Bears were able to return it and get good field position. They weren't able to capitalize on it, but it's essentially the same thing that he did against Jacksonville, where they had the 96-yard punt return for a touchdown. He's been doing this week in and week out. He had another, I believe this is the game where he had like the 19-yard punt or like a shanked punt. It might have been a previous
Mhm.
week, but he's been having just a very bad game, or he's not the quality punter that he was last year. And for a team that's been punting as much as they are, yes, it's great that he's been able to punt the ball far, but it's ultimately the net that is most important. And if you're out punting your coverage, if you're kicking low line drives with not enough hang time and they're able to get return it for 20 yards. It doesn't matter if you kick it 55 yards and they're able to return at 20 yards, it's a net of 35. Or if they're able to break one to the house like they did in Jacksonville. So he just has to get more consistent around that. And again, I don't know if this is anything coaching is talking to him about, but that's something that we need to focus in on a little bit more.
Yep. All right. Rams. Oh, you had your other down.
My other down was Michael Wenyu. Beginning of the game, he just got absolutely blown up on a play. Yeah, I believe he had another penalty too. He's just not playing like he did the first few years of his career. He's not playing like a perennial all-pro caliber guard, which he was. I think he was third in all-pro guards 2 years ago in voting, or a very good offensive tackle. He's just not playing like that all year, and he just had another game that isn't what we're used to seeing from him in previous years.
Yep. All right. Rams. They're coming into the game 4-5. They ended up, like you said, losing game to the Dolphins, which they should have won. Um, team is pretty offensive talented, but injured for a lot of the year. Puka
Why do you have
Nakoa.
Jimmy G under
What?
offensive line?
Puka and Nakua just returned from injury. Um, and like to see how he's going to be doing there. Um, but yeah, and then they have like you said, Sean McVay, really good offensive minded head coach on that team. So it'll be interesting to see how the Patriots fare up with their offense.
They also
But
have one of the best running backs in football in Kyron Williams too. So they can beat you not only with their passing attack, but they can also beat you with their running attack with Williams. And Williams is also a threat out of the backfield too in the receiving game.
yeah, so Matt Stafford QB, and then God forbid gets injured, Jimmy Garoppolo could be a revenge game. And then Cooper Cup, Puka, and then Demarcus Robinson, I think is a sneaky good third wide receiver for them.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Kyrie Williams, Parkinson, their tight end. He's young, but he's had some fairly good production at some points this year. At the last couple games, not so much, but I think that's more with Puka being back than anything. Anything else on their offense?
Yeah, it's going to be a good challenge for the Patriots defense and their coaching staff where they had a really good week this past week. Is this something that they can build upon, or is it going to be more inconsistency where they're great one week and then the next week it's bad where they're giving up 30, 40 points and just getting run all over? So it's going to be a very good challenge for them, both, especially since the Rams can both run it and they can pass.
Yep. And then their defense, really good front seven. And you can kind of talk about the Belichick all rookie second team, all rookie slash second year team. The three guys on there, one of them ended up having a really good play against the Dolphins, ended up blowing up. Can't remember if it's the running back or someone, but Jared Verse, linebacker, really good player. Their first round pick in years,
Yeah,
I think. So
I think 2015, 2016.
yeah,
But yeah, so this is something that Belichick, I'm not sure if you watched the coach podcast with Belichick, but this past week he had his all rookie slash second year team, and three of the Rams defensive linemen all made the team. With Jared Verse, as you said, their first round pick this year, he was picked 19th overall. And then on the edge, and he's also edge slash outside, and then inside defensive tackles with Braden Fisk, who was their second round pick this year, and then Kobe Turner, who was their third round pick last year. Uh, Also on McAfee this past week, Bill was really raving about their front seven, saying how a lot of people may not know about them, but in the coming weeks to months, you will. So they're really good up front. I know they didn't have a great game versus Miami overall as a team, but their defense is it's young and it's good, and it's something that should be getting better as time goes on. With that front seven, it's going to be interesting, and their that defensive line is going to be interesting to see how the Patriots' offensive line holds up against them. They've been playing better this week, outside of the Justin Simmons fiasco against the Titans. They have been playing better than they did the first couple games of the season, but this should be a good test as well, where their front defensive line, front seven, is very physical, very strong, very tough. And are the Patriots going to be able to fight back against that?
yep. All right. So prediction time: Rams favored by 4.5 points going to the game. Over under 40 and a half. One thing to note, Rams obviously coming from West Coast to East Coast. They played Monday night, so one less day of rest than the Patriots do, and having that 6 hour, 5 hour kind of flight difference coming in here, which usually negatively impacts a lot of those West Coast teams.
Yep.
Didn't really see it with the Seahawks as much, although that was a winnable game for them.
Hmm.
So I've got Patriots losing 24-17. I just think they'll just minorly lose out on this one. And then we'll not win because they're I think this is the one of the better teams they're facing in a while. So I think they'll end up coming up ahead.
Yeah, I have the Patriots losing 27-16. I think this is definitely a winnable game, especially seeing that Miami was able to beat them. Uh, Even though it was only a one-score game, Miami kind of had control in the second half. And I just think that the Rams' weapons mixed with them having good coaching might be too much for the Patriots defense. I'm not sure if the Patriots offensive line is going to be able to hold up against that front seven as well. So I have the Rams winning 27-16. But again, if things go the right way, if the defense continues to build upon what they did against the Bears last week, I do think this is a game that they could win.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter at Pat300 Pod. Talk to you next week.